Hi foodies! Today I'll be sharing my detailed meat pie recipe. This video will be divided into 3 parts. First part, we're going to make the dough. The second part, we're going to make that delicious filling. And the third part, we're going to assemble the pie. I'm also going to share the best way to make use of any leftover dough. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. Starting with the pie crust, you only need 4 ingredients to make this: flour, butter, salt, and water. I like to start by cutting the butter into little cubes, and I always use cold butter when making pie. It's so much easier to work with, and it's the secret to a flaky crust. If your kitchen is very warm, you can place the butter in the freezer for about 10 minutes before cutting. Next, in a large bowl, mix the flour and salt. When that's well combined, add the butter. I usually use unsalted butter for my pies just because that helps me better able to control the salt, but if you only have salted butter, you can use that as well. But don't forget to reduce or omit the salt if using salted butter or margarine. Mix the butter and the flour with your hands, or if you have a butter cutter like this, you can use that too. That makes it so much easier. After all the butter has mixed in, just check with your hands to make sure there are no large chunks of butter in there. It should look like breadcrumbs when you're done, just like this. Next, put a hole at the middle and then add the cold water. The reason I use cold water is just to make everything much easier. So the cold water is going to kind of re-solidify the butter, so the dough is easier to work with. And like I mentioned earlier, keeping all your ingredients cold is what gives you a very flaky crust. After adding the water, just mix until the dough comes together. So for pies, you want to avoid kneading as much as possible. Kneading the dough is going to give you a tough pie. So once the dough comes together, stop mixing. We're not aiming for a smooth dough here, so it's okay if it's very rough. When you're done, transfer to a work surface and divide in 2. This is what it should look like on the inside. Next, I like to wrap each dough in plastic wrap before placing it in the fridge. That just keeps out any unwanted food smell from getting in. You can also use a Ziploc bag or an airtight container to do this. After wrapping, transfer to the fridge to chill for 30 minutes. So chilling the dough not only helps it re-solidify so it's easier to work with, it also makes it extra flaky. Another way to make pie crust is by doing it in a food processor. To do this, add all the ingredients including the butter. Pulse a couple of times until all the butter is mixed in. I usually use this method when I'm in a hurry because it only takes about 2 to 3 minutes from start to finish to come together. When the butter is mixed in, add all the water. Give it a couple of more pulses until a dough forms. Once the dough comes together, stop mixing. Remember, we don't want to overwork our dough so our pie doesn't come out tough. So the only downside with this method is that the dough can feel a bit soft just because of the heat from the food processor, but not to worry, that all goes away after chilling. So we're done with the first part. While the dough is chilling, we're going to go ahead and make our filling. I'm using the classic vegetables for meat pie, carrots and potatoes, but feel free to add or remove any vegetables you like or don't like. Sometimes I like to add some red bell peppers for color and sweetness. Go ahead and peel and then dice the vegetables into smaller pieces. Make sure the vegetables, especially the potatoes, are cut equally so it cooks evenly. If you have a vegetable chopper like this, that's awesome. This is what I usually use to get small and even pieces. It also saves a lot of time in the kitchen, and I'm all about any kitchen gadgets that saves me time. After cutting the carrots, I like to rinse and just soak them in water so it doesn't change color. Next, I'll cut the other vegetables, so the carrots and the onion. And if you're interested in this vegetable chopper, I'm going to provide the link for you. You can find that in the description box. All the prep work for the filling is done. Next, heat up some oil. You can use any type of oil you prefer. Add the chopped onions and just fry this for about 2 minutes until soft. Add the minced meat. So I usually prefer the lean minced meat, so something with less than 10% fat. So if you can find that, that's great, but if you can't find it, you can use the regular kind. Just scoop out the excess oil when it's cooked. Cook the meat until it's no longer pink, and then season with some beef seasoning cubes, salt, garlic powder, and I like to add a little bit of red pepper. The pepper is going to give the pie a bit of heat, which gives it a really nice balance, but if you don't like heat, you can definitely leave it out. Keep frying until all the spices are mixed in, and then add the chopped potatoes and carrots. Continue frying for about 1 to 2 minutes and then add the water. Add enough water to cook the potatoes and then cover and allow to cook on low heat so it doesn't burn, and you're going to cook this for about 15 minutes. While that's cooking, mix together some cornstarch and water. This is going to be our thickener for the filling. If you don't have cornstarch, you can substitute with flour. Check on the sauce in between just to make sure there's enough water there so it doesn't burn. You know the filling is ready when the potatoes are fully cooked. When the potatoes are cooked, then it's time to add the corn flour slurry. I like to just give it a quick mix before adding it because sometimes the corn flour can settle at the bottom. After adding, mix immediately to avoid any lumps, and then continue mixing until the sauce has thickened. You can also thicken the filling by mashing the cooked potatoes. Just keep mashing and keep stirring until the filling becomes nice and thick. Remove from heat and then transfer to a wide plate. We're going to let this cool down completely before assembling. Spread it out evenly and allow to cool at room temperature. If you're in a hurry, you can also pop it in the fridge or even the freezer to cool faster. The pie filling is ready, which means the second part is done and dusted. So we'll move on to the third part, which is assembling the pie. Before assembling the pie, take the pie dough out of the fridge and just let it rest for about 10 minutes so it softens a little. Cut the pie disc into smaller pieces. So this recipe makes about 12 medium pies, but feel free to halve, double, or even triple this recipe depending on how many pies you want to make. After cutting, I like to mold each piece into something that looks like a ball so it's easier to shape into a circle. To roll, you can just sprinkle a bit of flour just so nothing sticks, and then using a rolling pin, roll to about 1/4 of an inch thick. So if you are in a hurry and you didn't have enough time to chill the dough, you can make the rolling easier by placing a parchment on top of the dough before rolling. To cut, I usually just use the cover of my smallest pot. This serves as a shaper as well as a cutter. You can also use any round object like a plate and just use a knife to cut around it. And of course, you can cut into any shape you prefer. Whisk 1 egg and then using your hands or a pastry brush if you have one, brush the egg around the surface of the pie crust. Then add the filling, cover, and just press together with your finger. Please make sure that your filling has completely cooled down before using. Next, use a fork to just crimp the edges like this. Repeat the same process for the remaining pies, and when you're about halfway done, you can start preheating your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius. If your kitchen is very warm or hot, you can place the already made pies in the fridge while you're making the other ones. When you're done with everything, just brush the top with the egg wash from earlier. The egg wash is going to give the pie a nice color and a shiny finish when it's baked. After the egg wash, just go in with a fork and poke holes at the top of the pies. So these holes prevent the pies from popping open in the oven while it's baking. So they kind of act like an air vent that lets the steam escape while baking. So make sure when you're poking the holes, make sure it goes through the first layer of the dough so it can work properly. I also like to do this after the egg wash because sometimes if you brush with egg wash after poking the holes, it has a tendency to seal them. When you're done, transfer to the preheated oven and you're going to bake this for about 30 to 40 minutes. If you have any leftover pie dough, a great way to use them is by making air pies. Air pies are essentially just pies with no filling. The air pies are usually a big hit with kids as well as adults who don't like meat pie filling. So if you don't like air pies, you can just save your leftover pie crust. This will keep in the fridge for about 3 days or in the freezer for up to 3 months. But if you do want to try it, this is how to make it. So just brush the edges with the egg wash like you did with the regular pies. Cover and then crimp with a fork. So the only difference in this process, well, aside from the fact that there's no filling, is that we're not going to poke holes in this one. So because there's no venting at the top, the steam will gather while it's baking, and that is going to cause the pie to swell up, which is where the name air pie comes from. Brush with egg wash and then pop it in the oven. The air pies take a shorter time to bake. You only need about 20 to 25 minutes. The meat pies are ready. The air pies are also ready. I'm just going to let this rest for a few minutes and then enjoy. You can find the recipes for the pies as well as the links to the tools used. You can also find a very detailed written recipe on my blog at kikifoodies.com. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and if you're already subscribed, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.